Not that I was necessarily doubting it before, but Hitman confirmed to me that Glen Powell has decent range as an actor. So I recently watched a screener for Glen Powell's movie Hitman, which is, interestingly enough, based on a true story. I don't remember if it mentioned that at the very beginning, but I did discover when the movie ended that it was loosely based on a true story. The similarities are there was a man named Gary Johnson who posed as a fake hitman for the police in order to nab people who were trying to hire folks to kill someone. And also at one point during his work in this capacity, he talked a woman out of having the hit carried out on her husband because she was in an abusive relationship and he offered to help her, like with a shelter or whatever. That's where the similarities pretty much end. This movie takes that part of his life and turns it into kind of it's this weird mixture of like a comedy, a bit of suspense-ish, some noir-ish, with a femme fatale-ish type of character, and also is like this romantic, I don't know, it's kind of, you can't really call it a rom-com because it's not your typical rom-com, but that's basically what this story is about. His relationship with this woman, because she thinks he's a hitman. When they meet up again later, this is the persona he continues to portray to her. And so it gets him into some trouble because he's behaving in a way it's not really smart for him to do, but at the same time, his day job is like he's a professor or something at this college. He's like, I can't remember if it's like psychology or something like that. So he really, his day job involves teaching students about, our personalities. Can we change our personalities? The id and the ego and all that sort of stuff. It's interesting to see his normal life and the different person that he is in this life compared to the personas that he takes on when he's posing as this hitman. One of the first things that I wrote down in my notes for this was chameleon. And then I put in parentheses orphan black, and then I wrote range. And what I meant by that is, so not that I ever thought he was a bad actor, I just have never really seen him in enough that makes me perceive that he has decent range as an actor. He's always been kind of like a side character. The first time I ever paid attention to him as an actor was in Top Gun Maverick. I know he's been in things I've seen, but I just never noticed him. He just went right over my head. So I've never seen him in a leading role capacity before. And he won me over as someone who's got solid range, because the different characters that, I'm going to say range a lot, I feel like. The different characters that he portrays when he's doing these jobs where he's posing as a hitman, they all have these vastly different personalities and different looks, and his normal personality is quite different from all of these other personalities that he takes on throughout the course of his job as this fake hitman. And so throughout that, he really demonstrated that he can pull off different types of characters. That's one of the things I really appreciated about this movie, was that it showed me this side to him as a performer. There were some other things that I liked about this film. It was entertaining. It had situations where I felt like I could predict where something was going to go. And a lot of times I kind of did predict where things were going to go. And the characters did some things, especially his character. He was kind of stupid sometimes, some of the stuff that he would do. And so I could predict the problems that, I think anybody could actually predict the problems that this was going to cause because of some of the stuff he was doing. Also, regarding one of the characters, I was suspicious of this particular character many times, and things happened in ways that I didn't necessarily predict. So I liked that there were moments that I was surprised, but at the same time, there was a predictability to the stuff that was going on. However, this movie had this weird mishmash to me of tones. It was a bit comedic, yet it could get really dark. And then there was this sort of noirish type of feel to it because there's this femme fatale involved. And couldn't really, I mean, I felt like I was supposed to view this as a comedy because in a lot of ways it kind of was. And there was a bit of lightheartedness to it, especially when it came to some of the side characters, like the people that he worked with. But then there were also these other darker elements. You're talking about people that are hiring people to kill somebody. And there was actual death that happened in here. So it was this strange balance. And I'm not entirely sure that worked well for me. This movie is getting fairly high reviews from official critics. And I did watch a couple of reviews on YouTube, but specifically I watched Fish Jelly's review after I had seen this because their reviews are all spoiler reviews. And so I wanted to kind of reach out and get some feelers for how audience members were reacting to this. And they loved this movie, gave it like a 4 out of 5. And there was another reviewer that I saw that really loved the movie. And critic ratings, like I said, are super high. I feel like audience ratings are going to be pretty solid, but I'm just not quite sure that it's set that same way for me. I don't think I could rate this as high as a 4 out of 5. For me, it's a solid 3.5. It wasn't terrible. The length was decent. The acting was pretty good for, well, the main characters at least. Some of the side characters kind of felt almost a tad cartoony or kind of a caricature-ish of the side character folks, maybe you'll know what I'm talking about when you see it. Glen did a good job. Oh gosh, the girl's name, Adria Arjona. She's Ricardo Arjona's daughter. I think that's how you say it. Anyway, she's a singer's daughter, and she's been in some other things. She was in, I think she might have been in Morbius, and she was in Andor. Andor was the first thing that I actually paid attention to her in. She did a pretty good job in here. There's a scene where the two of them are interacting, and they're having a physical conversation, but they're also having another conversation via phone text. So it was really interesting how that scene played out. I thought they both did a really good job with that. So I don't really have complaints about the acting. It's just this weird, like I said, this weird mixture of different tones. And by the time I was done with it, I was like, okay, I didn't hate it, but I'm not in love with it. And I wasn't expecting to feel that way. The poster of this movie gives you the feeling that this is primarily a comedy, and yet it's a bit darker than your typical comedy. Did Richard Linklater, he's the director of this, did he work on Bernie? If he was the director of that, because I thought I saw his name in connection with it. It's kind of the same sort of feel as Bernie, which is a bit comedic, yet at the same time quite dark. So maybe this is just his style. I know I've seen his stuff, but I don't always match up films with director names. So if this is his style, if this is the type of stuff that you're familiar with coming from him and you like it, then you're probably going to really enjoy this movie. Like I said, I do not hate it. I'm not really giving it a bad review. I'm just not giving it a glowing review. This is not something that I can throw a ton of love at, but I would recommend it if you like Glen Powell, if you like the premise of this story, if you like loosely based on true story movies, then check this out. You may really enjoy it. This was based on, or the inspiration for this movie came from an article that was published in the Texas Monthly magazine or newspaper or something, whatever, written by someone named Skip Hollandsworth. And so he and Richard Linklater worked together. Also, Glen had a hand in the writing for this as well. So it was very much a joint collaborative type of effort between these three people. And I think maybe Glen is also one of the producers or something. I can't recall. So he has his fingers in this project pretty well. He was personally invested in it, and he did a pretty solid job. It's a decent film, and the one thing, like I said, that I really appreciated about this is that it demonstrated to me that he's a capable actor. I feel like Glen is getting a bit of overexposure. He's one of those actors that's that now it's like you see him everywhere. This is the third movie of his this year, I believe, because I think Anyone But You came out earlier this year. And then there's this, and then there's Twisters. And he's getting really close to triggering that feeling in me that's like, I'm seeing a bit too much of you now. Space it out a bit. I know this is not necessarily something that actors can control, but sometimes it feels like when they're just being thrown at you left and right, the same actor in all these different movies, it feels, well, for me anyway, I don't know, it gets a little bit tiring, but whatever. To each their own. I don't dislike him at all. He's fine. It's just, I've seen him a lot lately. Anyway, that's about all I think I have to say about Hitman. It is going to be in theaters for about a week before it hits Netflix. I think it's coming out maybe this weekend. It might be just a limited release. So look out for it on Netflix coming pretty soon if you have that service. All right, I don't have anything else. So I'm wrapping this up. Later, guys.